we're eventually going to get to seventh chords. So that's why I thought it would be fun to take a little segue away from the strict structure and the theory, and we'll talk about a little bit of theory. But I'm calling this segment In Search of the Missing Chord. Now, right up front, I'm going to tell you that that's a bait and switch, because there is no such missing chord, and you'll see why soon. Of course, I'm showing my age. I've got a little bit of Marvin Gaye playing in the background. Well, you know, I'm a child of the 60s and 70s. What can I say? I just wanted to let you know that this particular segment is brought to you by a very luscious, deep-colored grape from southern Italy. It's called the Aglianico. This mystery is sort of a backwards mystery. Most of us are used to great mystery novels where you have, the plot is as follows. You have a crime that occurs. Then you have your characters introduced. Then you have clues dropped in and out. Then you have finally a hypothesis, maybe 2 or 3 hypotheses. And finally, finally the mystery is solved. So in this particular session here, we're going to start right up front with the reveal, okay? You're going to know what the mystery is right off the bat. Then we're going to move on to a hypothesis on my part. I could be wrong. Then we're going to move to characters and clues after that. Let's get into it here. Let's talk about the mystery chord, which basically is the major 7th. And let me just do a quick review. The C major scale, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1 again, or 8 you could call it. The notes of the C major 7th chord are a C triad and another third added on top of that. C, E, G, add the B is the C major 7, which is skipping every other note on the keyboard on the white keys. I'll show you that next time. That's the sound. You've heard it probably loads of times. Now this is the missing chord, and the reason I call it missing is because it's like some chord sounds has come in and out of vogue over the years, in my opinion. And if we go back to, well, you could go back to the 1880s. There's a prominent piece by Eric Satie that actually uses a lot of major 7th sounds. Then you get into modern jazz, say mid-century jazz. There are just so many major 7th chords you can't number them. I would give you one example here. The jazz standard, Autumn Leaves. Right there, you have a G major 7 to a C major 7. And then it continues on to the minor tonality of the song, predominant tonality. That's just one example of mid-century jazz. There are so many. So then you move into the 50s and 60s, the rock and roll era, okay, let's say. And what happened, in my opinion, and I think most would agree, is that the dominant 7th took the place of that tonic or first chordal sound. And we'll talk about the 1s, the 4s, the 5s, 2s, and all that later on in another session. But leave it at this, that the tonic chord from the major 7th became a dominant 7th for a lot of the rock and roll stuff. In the 60s, you do have examples of major 7th sounds that popped up here and there. The Beatles used a lot of major 7ths on This Boy, for example. Right off the bat, you get a major 7th sound. So then you move through the 60s into the 70s. Now, in the 70s, the major 7th kind of had a revival. It took prominence again. And there are so many examples of that. It's just unbelievable. Example 1 would be an America song called Tin Man. quite a bit of major seventh sounds. Even in the intro, there's a C major 7 with a D in the bass, and we'll talk about that, what's going on with that a little bit later on. And it just cycles between G major 7th and C major 7th. Now you go through the 70s, tons of major sevenths, including the opening song that I had in the background, Mercy, Mercy Me by Marvin Gaye. You move up into the 90s and 2000s, major seventh will pop in and out, and you'll have to search for it. One example that comes up to me is Red Hot Chili Peppers. Let's take a look at the chords from Can't Stop. They work in a major seventh in a couple of different spots. Some of the music I'm used to playing is contemporary worship music, and you will see, or hear, I should say, a major seventh chord. Here's a G major seventh. I'm actually muting the A string with the side of my second finger here. So all you're hearing is G, D, G, D, and then F sharp. I'm going to call it G major seventh, no third, which basically that's what it is. And it's a cool contemporary sounding major seventh. It's a little bit more ethereal sounding. Okay? And let's look at an example of how that is used in a song called Great Are You, Lord. Through the last couple of decades, John Mayer loves to use major seventh sounds and major ninths. You can search that out for yourself. There's another song I just heard today by a New York artist, R&B guy. He calls himself Cautious Clay. That's not his real name, but it's clever. Very talented young guy, 24, and he's got a fairly new song out within the last year. R&B thing, very smooth and kind of almost hip-hop sounding, but he uses a lot of major seventh and major nine sounds in that song called Cold War. Let me show you a few of the major seventh forms that I use. Here's an open major seventh. You've probably heard that tons of times or played it. You could move that up to here, to this position, and that has a C, a G, a B, and an E. Those are the four notes of C major 7. You could move that again up the neck to the 8th position. You've got the G on top, and that is C, E, B, and G. Very common major 7th voicing. Kind of jazzy sounding. Here's one I like. If you want to spread out a little bit, but you don't want to get too cluttered, this is a beautiful C major 7th. It has the 3rd on the bottom, then the C, then the G and B. Okay, again, a lot of these chords I'm not really explaining or showing you, but I'm muting the A string with the side of my second finger, so you're just hearing 4 notes. You could move up to this chord, which is cool. I've showed you that before. It's a C major 7, and it has the B and the C right next to each other, clustered in together to give you that beautiful little bit of a tension. Great sounding chord. And then this C major 7 here, C, G, B, and E on top. And you can keep going up and up the neck. Those are a few of the favorite major 7th chords that I like to use, but I'm sure you'll develop your own favorites. You can go to any music store and get a humongous book of chords, and it's going to have all kinds of charts and pictures of people's fingers on the fretboard, and you can use it as an encyclopedia if you run across a chord, C11 or something you don't know. You can look it up in the chord book, and that's fine. You should have a resource like that. My purpose in this series is to help you understand how these chords are built. You can rearrange the notes your own way, make your own chords, and the chords that you do use or you like the sound of, you will have an understanding of how they're made. And for now, over and out, and I'll see you in the next session. Thanks for watching, and I hope you got something out of this.